Last week, I had the CTO of a 6,000 person company send me this DM. We're paying six figures for Microsoft Copilot licenses, and almost everyone on my team uses it for writing emails. That's it. What the hell are we missing? So this is a deep dive on Microsoft Copilot. This is a complete guide to how to roll it out and make the most of it. I have been asked for this particular guide for months, and I have taken my time because of how complex it is. Strap in, stay tuned, get out your notebooks. This is going to be a long and complicated video, and it is totally worth it. Because you know why? Microsoft is in almost every enterprise out there. The chances are, if you can't use ChatGPT, if you can't use Claude, you got to use Copilot. So what do? I get that question a ton. This is the answer. I want you to walk away with a clear set of use cases you can adopt, a clear sense of the organizational changes you need to go through to enable Copilot, to get beyond the email use case, and a clear sense of which of the 12 different Copilot products to pick. I'm not kidding you. There are 12, and we're going to go into each of them. Okay. Here's where we start. Something like 90% of the Fortune 500 has Copilot. 90%. That's why this is such an important video. That's why I've taken my time on it. It's got to be correct. Microsoft's own data, though, shows that most people aren't using the full capability set of Copilot. Now, look, if you're not using the full capability set of Microsoft Word, which I know I don't, that's okay. It's Microsoft Word. It's there to help you type stuff. But if you're not using the full capability set of Copilot, it's a big deal because Copilot is literally intelligence on tap. And so if your workforce isn't using it, if your teams don't feel good about using it for things that are more than email, you're the ones missing out. Companies are literally paying for a Ferrari and they are driving it to the grocery store in first gear. That is what is going on with Copilot. So I've spent months looking into case studies. I've spent months talking to actual folks who are working on Copilot in these different enterprises that adopt it. And I've interviewed users who are individual contributors, users in the engineering departments, interviewed folks in product management, sales. I want to get a sense of how Copilot is actually being used and then how it could be used. And this is the fruit of all of that. This is me finally sort of sharing a little bit of what I've been learning so you can benefit. So you're going to know exactly which Copilot you need. You're going to save, you'll be on track to save several hours a week if you go through this video and actually apply it. These are going to be real workflows. I'm going to give you specific prompts. And I'm going to show you some case studies, including how Vodafone rolled this out to tens of thousands of people. I think it was 68,000 people successfully. Okay, with all of that for intro, let's jump into part one. I want to talk about the 12 different flavors of Copilot because it is completely confusing, and I get why people don't understand it. Frankly, Microsoft did something absolutely insane. They took the name Copilot and they slapped it onto everything. I'm going to read you the real, actual Copilot list, and I want you to tell me which one is the best Copilot. Microsoft Copilot. This is free. It comes built into Windows. Copilot Pro. It's a $20 a month power user version. That doesn't mean it's actually for professionals in a work setting. Copilot for Microsoft 365. It's a $30 a month one, and it looks like it's tied into companies, right? Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat. Somehow this is different and free for business accounts. Both of these are tied to the Microsoft 365 business product line. GitHub Copilot. This one's for developers and tied to the GitHub product line. Everybody got the Copilot branding. Are you getting the idea? GitHub Copilot for business. Different from regular GitHub, about double the price. Security Copilot. This one costs a lot of money. I don't understand how you can name the product the same thing and have it cost so much different. You can have something that is free in Windows and the same name, Copilot, also can cost $35,000 a year minimum. Copilot in Dynamics 365 for sales. It's built into your CRM. Copilot in Power Apps. It's for building apps. Do you get the idea why it's taken so long to make this video? People say, how do I use Copilot? In my head, I'm like, which of the 12 are you using? Windows Copilot. It's different from Microsoft Copilot somehow. Copilot Studio. It's for building your own Copilots so we can have more. And there's more. There's variants for customer service, for field service. There are companies that have bought Copilot Pro thinking it was the business version because it makes sense because it says Pro, but it's not the business version. There are companies that have bought Microsoft 365, but they don't have the right base licenses, so Copilot doesn't work properly. There's a dev team. Dev teams have bought Copilot for business when they just need individual licenses. The product surface confusion is as bad in Microsoft with Copilot as it is with ChatGPT and picking model names. They're both wildly harming the capability of the product and the ability of the product to deliver value by being unable to name it correctly. So everybody's confused, but smart companies can still get massive advantage because fundamentally it is intelligence on tap. I tease them for the naming, and the naming is confusing, but we're going to go through each of those products and we're going to talk about what they do so that you understand them and can figure out what you need. So let's dive in. Copilot Decoder. Like, I want you to get through this and basically figure out which one is right for you, because the difference is thousands of dollars per employee per year. Like, it's a big difference if you get this right. So let's jump in. Number one, we talked about Microsoft Copilot Free. So it's built into Windows and it is designed for consumers. Probably if you're in business, you're not using this. As an example, you can tell it to turn on focus mode, play jazz music, summarize this web page in Edge, help me write a birthday message for mom. This is the variant of Copilot that is ending up in the ads, because this is the one that average consumers have on their Windows machines in the book nook at home. Explain this screenshot, right? That's another example. It doesn't access work files. You should not put confidential information into it. It does not have prioritized GPU access, so it gets slow during peak times. If you have Windows 11, it's already there. Okay, let's move up a little bit. Copilot Pro, this is for people who are individuals who are not professionals at work, even though it's named Pro. It's roughly on par with the sort of ChatGPT Plus offering, so it's like $20 a month or so. So you get priority access to GPT-4 Turbo, which is, it's an okay model. It's not that great. You get 100 image generations per day versus 15 on free. So if you want to make, I guess, a fancy childhood book, I don't know. It works inside office.com web apps, which is a real help. And you get early access to new features. So as an example of things you can do in Pro, you can generate your social media images there. If you want faster and better responses across long documents as a writer, Pro can work well for you. If you're a student, you get priority access during finals week when people are using it, right? And so it can make sense, right? Like if you are working on final drafts for a document and it saves you a few hours a week because it can handle the load, that adds up to real money. It easily pays for itself. But let's keep going. Copilot for Microsoft 365. I believe this is $30 a month, and it's aimed at the business layer, right? At enterprise. So the key difference is this one will see your work data. It's tied into the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. That is the point. And this is often the one that people are talking about when they talk about Copilot at work. Not always. There's a few others we'll get to. So specific capabilities by app for this particular flavor of Copilot, Copilot from Microsoft 365. You can get the entire intelligence experience in Outlook. I tease that people mostly use it for Outlook, but I'm starting there because that is where people start. Summarize emails from John from last week about Project X. You can easily do that. Get a draft or reply accepting the meeting and proposing Tuesday instead. You can get that in 5 seconds, right? Very easy. If you're in Word, create a project proposal for X topic based on this template, which is a docx file. Rewrite this section to be more executive friendly, right? That's a very PME thing to say. I can say that because I'm a product manager. Add a risks and mitigation section using data from risks. risk.xlsx, right? Like let's assume it's an Excel's file. And it does work in Excel as well. What are the top 3 trends from the sales data is something you can ask. It will tell you like it grew this much, et cetera, as long as the data is clean. Create a pivot table showing sales by region and month. Instant pivot table, which by the way, as someone who's had to suffer through Excel, the fact that people can now create instant pivot tables, we live in a blessed world. I hated creating pivot tables when I was in marketing. It was just so much pain. So it's really nice to be able to have pivot tables that I can just type in and speak and up they come, right? It's very handy. PowerPoint, create a 5-slide deck from report.docx. This will not be gorgeously formatted, but it will do it. It will have some design. It will have some slide transitions, which you may hate or you may not hate, but it will have them. And you can tell it to add speaker notes based on the content. If you're in Microsoft Teams, you can say, hey, what did we just decide about the budget? And you can actually like type it in or talk it in during the meeting, and like you can get some kind of a response from Copilot. You can ask Copilot to generate meeting minutes with action items, summarize the channel's discussion. You will notice I am just going through Copilot 365, which is not the fanciest Copilot. I am already giving you so much more than just email here, and we are just barely getting started. Okay, let's go to the developer side of the house. GitHub Copilot, a $10 a month individual. I think it's $19 a month for business. The idea is very similar to Cursor, very similar to Windsurf. It writes code alongside you, right? And so depending on who you talk to, you're going to get people saying that this makes them much faster, right? It's 55% faster on repetitive tasks. That's the number I saw. I don't care if it's 55 or 30 or 25 or 75. The point is, it's a repetitive task, right? That's the thing to call out. If it is helping you to auto-complete your code faster, then it is going to give you that speed up. And in that sense, like, you bring the design, you bring the knowledge of the code, you bring the ability to write the code, and all Copilot does is it acts like a smart auto-suggest, and it runs really fast. And so for folks that write code by hand, and that's the way they do it, that's great. For folks that are using more of the agentic capabilities in Cursor, Copilot like this is not really going to work for them. And so this is actually one of the areas where I think the developer ecosystem is changing extremely rapidly. You still have developers that write code by hand, and they are finding it better to write with an accelerated pen, so to speak, or an accelerated keyboard, because they can get the Copilot generated auto suggestions. But you also have people who are moving away from writing code at all and depending on AI more, maybe through vibe coding, or maybe they're real developers and they're using agents to basically run pull requests through. Or maybe they're writing some of the code themselves and then they're using agents for the rest. The developer ecosystem is fracturing really quickly, and developers, if you've ever talked to them, have strong opinions about this. I am not going to have the which development stack makes sense and is future aligned conversation in this particular video, but we will have it soon. For now, that's what you need to know about Copilot for GitHub. It basically helps you write code you already know how to write faster. Security Copilot. This one is something like $4 an hour for compute. It costs roughly $35,000. It's for, I know, I'm not over it either. This is like, it's free. It's $10 a month. It's $35,000. Really? That's the pricing? Anyway, we'll leave the branding aside. So security teams with 10 plus analysts might use this. And basically what it does is it helps you to analyze suspicious user behavior across different logs. It helps you to write incident reports. It explains malware code. If you are at a certain scale, I tease them, but like, this is absolutely worth the money. If you can explain malware code in plain English and write incident reports and you're operating at true enterprise scale, pays for itself like that. You can do something like, say, investigate if user John Doe's account is compromised, and it will really run an investigation. Or you can ask it to sort of write up and describe an incident that comes across your desk and accelerate the time to resolution. And if you think about the millions of dollars lost on incidents in secure environments, the ROI is off the charts, even at $35,000. And that is one of the things that makes large language models and AI hard for someone like me to talk about. I have to talk both about how individuals are using this in their book nook with Windows 11, and also how a security team at a Fortune 100 is using a $35,000 edition with the same name that is enabling them to get back online 2 or 3 hours faster, saving the company $10 million. Those are the same named thing. All right. We got through a bunch of the different Copilots. I want to talk about some specific workflows that can help you deliver a win. So yes, I'm not kidding. We really are going to start with email. If you've never done Copilot before, this is great. If you've done Copilot and you can do email, we'll breeze through it fast enough that you can get to the other cool stuff too. So open Outlook with Copilot. You can click on the Copilot icon, ask it to summarize your unread emails. That's a great one. Everyone has unread emails. Do you have a zero inbox? I rarely have a zero inbox. And so you'll get answers. Alice had a budget revision request. Carol, she wants her client meeting moved to 2 p.m., etc. Now you know it needs your attention. That's value right there. If you have a long complaint email from a client, just say, hey, draft a professional response, acknowledging concerns, offer an X% discount, and propose a new timeline. You can do that kind of like business engagement with your email inbox, and it does save time. And so as much as the CTO that started off this whole thread in this video was complaining about the fact that his team only uses it for email, even in that case, they were saying they were saving, multiple hours a week. It wasn't nothing. Let's move on to another use case, document creation. Take a task like a blog post. Let's say you're back in Nate's former chair, you're a marketer. We need to write a blog post about sustainable packaging. You can just say, hey, give me 5 trends in sustainable packaging. Give me a sentence each. Okay, great. Now create a detailed outline for a 1,000-word article. Okay, great. Write the first paragraph. Help me see your hook. Okay, let's tweak it. Okay, now I like it. Write section 1, write section 2. You're going to be done with that blog post in 15 minutes versus 2 hours traditionally. It's a huge savings for SEO type document creation. I will hasten to add, it is extremely good at document creation, which may lead you to think it is extremely good at strategy. Those are different things. If you want a good strategic partner, that is not the workflow to go through. You still need to bring your brain if you are doing strategic thinking. What Copilot is doing is accelerating your ability to execute once you have clarity. I'm just going to underline that like 3 times. Okay. Let's go over to the Excel. Let's look at the data analysis piece. Let's say, like me, you don't love all those Excel formulas. You can be as simple and as high level as you want. You can say, hey, Copilot, analyze this data, and you're in a spreadsheet, and you can say, tell me what's interesting. Sales increased 23% year over year. July was an anomaly with a 45% spike. The Western region is underperforming. Honestly, it will give you stuff like that. You might follow up, hey, why is July so high? Well, and then it will show you what it knows, right? Copilot might say, hey, column J shows that there's a summer promotion running for July entries. And then you can say, great, okay, create a chart, show monthly trends with a July spike highlighted, and you get a professional chart. That entire workflow used to take me an afternoon when I was working through marketing data anomalies. It is now doable in just a couple of minutes. This is an example of something that is actually, it's no code, it's not that hard, but I hear actual orgs using Copilot with Excel a lot less than I hear them using it with DocX and with Outlook. I don't know why, but Excel seems to be underrepresented. Don't sleep on Copilot in Excel if you have Copilot enabled. Meeting productivity. Let's get into the meeting side of things. Everybody has meetings. One of the things that I learned actually is that all of our meeting burden increased after 2020. We had, I think, something maybe 2-3x, depending on how you measure the baseline number of meetings. And that hasn't really gone away. So all that to say, meeting productivity matters more than ever. You could try this prompt, right? Let's say you're in pre-meeting prep. You type into Copilot, I have a client meeting about Project X in an hour. Give me an agenda. I want status update. I want challenges. I want next steps. It's going to spit out an agenda with time limits and give you a sense of those time limits. And then you're going to say, hey, what questions should I ask to understand the concerns that the client is going to express a little bit better? And it's going to spit out questions that you can actually dig into. You can get Copilot with Teams in a live meeting. And so you can say, what have we discussed so far if you joined late? And Copilot will give you an update without you interrupting Betty and saying, hey, Betty, what are we talking about? You've all been there, right? Like somebody joins the Zoom or somebody joins the Teams meeting, 6 minutes, 8 minutes late. And like, they're a highly paid, important person. And so they get the update and everybody has to sit there and let, the update happen. You can just ask Copilot for it now. I'm not saying that we humans will still do that, right? Like, again, there's a gap that we're going to cover between what the tool can let you do and how humans behave. Using Copilot to the max demands cultural change of your business. And we're going to get into that later in this video. Okay, so Copilot searches your transcript. Copilot produces summaries. Post-meeting, you can say, hey, create meeting minutes. Give me attendees, key discussions, decisions made, action items with owners, and you'll get formatted minutes super fast that you can send to everybody. Now, I will say, like, meeting minutes by themselves are not particularly a thing. You can get them from Granola, you can get them from Otter, you can get them from, I think OpenAI does them now. The thing that Microsoft has always sold is distribution and bundling, right? Now it's all in one place. Your Copilot here will take care of it. Okay, day 5, research assistant. You want to look at how you can use Copilot beyond just operating on documentation you already have. So web research is a great example of discovering new information. And so you can give Copilot a prompt and you can say, hey, can you find, say, current pricing for top 5 CRM software companies? I'd like to create a comparison table. Copilot searches, it returns, this is what Salesforce costs, this is what HubSpot costs, here are 2 or 3 others, etc. It creates a nice formatted comparison table. By the way, if you are in sales, this is an example of how people are actually collapsing the buying funnel. People are making high consideration software purchases by talking to Copilot, by talking to ChatGPT. Okay, so let's say you're not looking on the web. Let's say you're looking internally. You remember if you're on certain flavors of Copilot, the 365 one, for example, you can search all of your documents for mentions of Q4 budget and summarize findings because Microsoft 365 has access to it. And it will dig it up and come back and say, hey, I found 3 documents. There's budget draft XLS. There's budget draft V2 XLS. We all have our weird names for our docs. I'll spare you the rest of it. And it will tell you a little bit about what's inside. It mentions 2 million allocated. It mentions a 15% increase was approved. I think the thing I will call out here is that this is actually a feature that works because of how powerful Microsoft has been for decades. There are other companies like Perplexity that are working on internal document search for your PC, for your Mac, that have got a hard row to hoe. They have to build a lot more, and you have to trust and remember Perplexity to use it, and you're still only an individual. And the advantage of Microsoft really shines through here because they have your data, you built the data in their tool, they know where the data is, and they can just slap Copilot over the top. This is why a lot of people are using Copilot, and hence this video. Let's go from the basic workflows with basic tools to advanced individual workflows. We are past, hey, can you draft this response to Sheila from sales? We're going to go and do something more fun. Let's do a batch processing prompt in email. You can do that, Can you please group this list of 50 emails by topic? Get project X 12, you can get budget questions 5, meeting requests 8. It really will group them, which makes it easier to batch process your email. That was always very hard to do before, but my brain works by topic, so it's very helpful. You can create prompts for common emails. You can then invoke those prompts really quickly, and you can quickly answer and knock out those batches. You can even have end of day prompts. Hey, which emails from today need follow-up tomorrow? And it will give you that summary for the day. Okay, let's get out of email. Everyone does too much email. Let's go to the blog post workflow. We talked before about drafting it. Let's go farther. Let's do research. You can find 5 recent stats about remote work productivity. You can outline and create a blog structure with an intro, 3 main points, and conclusion. You can draft it. You can polish it. You can say, hey, suggest 5 SEO-friendly titles for the post. And social, create 3 Twitter posts promoting this article. None of this is really surprising. It doesn't take code, but what it does is it challenges someone who's only used to, hey, draft this response as an AI capability, or hey, write this blog post as an AI capability, to think of AI as intelligence that underlies your entire workflow. What could you do with your time if intelligence was pushing on all of the different pieces of your workflow? And so the email example I shared, what makes it advanced is that you're thinking about your inbox differently. You're thinking about it in terms of topics, and you're asking the intelligence you got with Copilot to attack it differently as a result. Same with the blog post. You're asking the intelligence that Copilot brings to help you through all of the stages of drafting and sharing, not just the drafting and writing. You'll see that theme pull through, that sort of end-to-end theme pull through with most of these advanced workflows. So report writing. Summarize all of our Project X documents from this month. That alone is worth hours, by the way. If you have clean data, that is incredibly valuable. Create a monthly report template with standard sections. Creating a template is something that used to take me a long time because I had to think about whether it was best practice. I had to look up whether it was best practice. I had to sort of agonize over every section. Not anymore. Create a monthly report template, and by definition, because of how Copilot is trained through reinforcement learning on business data, it is going to be best practice. Now, you can add to it, but you're getting a pretty decently good template, which is fantastic. Okay, now fill in the section with the summarized information. Give me a 1-page executive summary and suggest 3 charts. You can actually, if you have good data, if you have an opinion on what you want to call out, you can write an exec report like that very, very quickly. Previously, that would have taken a day or 2. I will emphasize again, it does not mean that you are letting the Copilot do the strategic thinking. I think in a sense, Microsoft has branded it well as a Copilot because it means you are still the pilot. You are still the driver. Okay. Another advanced workflow. Let's go to the data analysis problem. You can let's go end to end with sales analysis. We're not just going to say, hey, tell me what's interesting. We're going to say, hey, raw data, 10,000 rows of sales transactions. What's the overall trend in the data? And it will say, hey, sales is growing 3.2% month over month. Okay, great. Which products are driving growth? Product A is up 45%. Product B, selling to developers, is down 12%. I'm kidding. I love you, developers. You're great. Are there any concerning patterns? Well, returns are increasing for product B. People, especially, in our southern region, we're having license expiration issues. We're having churn issues, whatever it is, right? I'm giving you an example that helps you understand the kind of prompting you can do with 10,000 rows, right? You can do this with software. You can do this with physical goods. Okay, great. Create a pivot table. I want to see this by region broken out. And then think with me about actions that we can take. And this is where I want to call out that this is an advanced workflow, partly because of the you have to exercise. Because at the end of the day, if you're asking for the actions that we should consider, Copilot's going to give you best practice actions. It will not necessarily give you creative actions. You need to think about the creativity that you want to bring to this. And you need to think about what you want to accomplish strategically and make sure that any recommendations Copilot generates are in line with that overall strategy. Again, you bring the brains to the exercise. Okay. We've talked a ton in this video about individual productivity, but one of the things the CTO wrote me about was that he wanted to see team productivity change. It's a vexed issue, especially if you're in C-suite. How do you upshift teams? How do you move teams from buckets of individuals who do work with Copilot and say they save 3 or 4 hours a week on surveys and you don't know where it went, to actually getting teams to move forward? Let me give you a few examples. Number one, super simple. build a shared prompt library. A lot of people are doing this. They'll have email templates like marketing team examples or like draft a customer win announcement email, write the webinar invitation. These are obviously not full prompts. I just gave you 3 or 4 word prompts. If you know me, you know I am known as the prompt guy, and I do long multi-page prompts. So let's assume, shorthand, that these are longer prompts that you are now sharing across the team. That is a good example within a team of collaborating effectively. Generate 5 LinkedIn post ideas for a white paper. That's another one. Create an email nurture sequence for new leads. That's another one. Analyze campaign performance. Suggest improvements. There's another one. This inside team baseball, this inside team improvement doesn't just work for marketers. You can do it for sales. Hey, draft a follow-up email for the demo call. And sales can customize that to particular product lines, right? Create a proposal executive summary from our meeting notes to send to a key stakeholder. Again, that can be something you share. Write a contract amendment for a scope change. Legal can weigh in there on the prompt and give you the right framing so that you get good draft language they can later approve. This is not that hard. You can create a Teams channel called Copilot Prompts. You just pin successful prompts. You can tag them by use case like hashtag email, hashtag content, and just do a fun little monthly brown bag, right? Like that's a very simple way to start to socialize prompts across the business. Let's say you don't want to just look at productivity within teams, but between teams, right? Sales to implementation. Let me give you an example here. Sales can create a deal summary using Copilot. And it can say, extract all technical requirements from this contract so our engineering team can understand it. Copilot will go through, it will extract the technical requirements. I would recommend reading it again just to make sure, but it's going to give you a technical summary, and engineering will then get a clean requirements list. Engineering can then use Copilot to say, hey, can you create an implementation timeline based on these requirements? Engineering, in most cases, will look at that implementation timeline, swear at it, go to lunch, come back, have a beer, and then write the actual one down. But I find even if you're upset with a Copilot estimate, it still moves the ball forward because it gets you off the blank page. I find in most cases when we're having like agile estimation meetings with developers, a lot of what we talk about is that inherently estimating software production is hard, and starting with an estimate somewhere helps us to move the ball and shape our understanding. It helps the conversation to move in the direction we want it to move because we're no longer focused on getting onto the page. We have an estimate, now we can argue about it. And that's one of the things that Copilot helps you with. In this case, the key value Copilot brings is it helps to translate hard contract language into technical requirements engineers can get. That by itself can save you days of meetings. I have seen complicated enterprise contracts founder because the engineering team was not brought in early enough. Most of us who have been around software long enough have seen stuff like that. Copilot can help. That's an example of something that literally doesn't just save time, it can save an entire deal from churning. Let me give you another sort of cross-team example. Marketing to product. Marketing can say, analyze the customer feedback we're getting from social media this month. Now, you're going to have to get social media data into an Excel spreadsheet if you want a clean data set, or you're going to have to trust that your signal is loud enough on social channels that you give Copilot that you will get responsible feedback. I will say, if you just trust it to go out and look at your social accounts, it tends to be recency biased, and it tends to do things like sort of cut off its investigation after a few tweets or after a few Reddit threads. And so this is a case where marketing needs to be responsible, understand how the tool actually works. It's a little bit token lazy, and pull in all the data that you need ahead of time. But regardless, let's say you've done the good stuff. You've got the data in place in Excel. Analyze the customer feedback from social media. You'll get themes. Hey, there's UI confusion, X number of mentions, feature X requests, and feature Y frustration. Great. Product can then take that analysis that you get from marketing. Maybe you throw a chart in there, right? Copilot can help with that. And it can then say, hey, can you help me prioritize these feedback themes? How do they align to our existing roadmap? And it can invoke like roadmap.docx, and it can put them together, and it can say, hey, this could slot in here, this could slot in here. That creative streamlining is something that PMs have historically been very frustrated by because it means revisiting a roadmap and changing it all the time. This makes some of that pain easier. It means that marketing has more of a voice with product. It is one of the advanced workflows that ultimately pays for itself, not just in sort of the time and alignment and lack of frustration, but in the right feature getting built for customers more often. Is it perfect? No. Are PMs still going to argue about the roadmap? 100%. But it gives you a sense of what Copilot can do beyond just help me with my email. Okay. I want to go into an example of the Vodafone rollout, which I promised at the beginning of this video. It's an enterprise rollout. I believe they have something like 68, 70,000 employees across a couple of dozen countries. Obviously, across any teams that size, you have different technical skill levels. You have multiple languages. We've got various job functions. So what did they do? They started us with a small pilot. This is all publicly documented, by the way. They started with a small pilot, only a few hundred users in the UK. Mixed group. They actually deliberately mixed it, right? Sales, support, IT management. And they had a 6-week pilot and they had regular check-ins. They measured everything. The time, the quality, the satisfaction. They wanted to understand if this was actually helpful. It was the pilot with a small number of users that sold leadership on the value of Copilot at scale. What they saw was it saved something like 3 hours a week per person. They saw that most people wanted to keep using it. Most people said their work quality improved. Customer service in particular said response time was cut dramatically. I think it was something like 40%. Sales said proposals went out days faster. IT saw ticket resolution times improve. When you start to see in controlled environments that are small like that, real gains and people wanting to keep using it, it's an indicator that this is a generally available technology that can uplevel a large range of enterprise job functions if you let it. And what I love about the Vodafone example is they took the time to make sure in that controlled environment that everyone had access to the tool, the training, that everyone understood the expectations, and that everyone knew that this was special and they would be focusing on this to make sure they adopted it successfully. I bet you this would not have been as successful if it was just rolled out casually across everybody, if they didn't have training, if they didn't measure everything, if they didn't do weekly check-ins. The way you roll out the intelligence helps you see if the intelligence works or not and helps people know how to use it. Otherwise, you're just going to have Barbara summarizing emails with Copilot and writing, well, I save about an hour a week, right? And then CTOs email me and say, what are we doing wrong with Copilot? And the answer is probably a culture change piece. There's a rollout piece. So phase 1, foundation, months 1 to 2, executive announcement from the CEO. Like when you are rolling out intelligence, I'm assuming here that this is a from scratch rollout. It's not often actually the case because 90% of, the Fortune 500 or whatever have Copilot somewhere. But let's just pretend that for clarity in the YouTube video, this is a clean rollout. So initially, first couple of months, CEO announces this is coming. They've identified a couple of dozen Copilot champions across different divisions. I'm assuming this is a big company again. This is our focus is on enterprise right now. They've built an internal support site where you can get your questions answered. They develop role-specific training for different departments, and those champions are owning that training. You can see how you're starting to seed the change in, right? And the CEO is setting the pace and saying, this is good, this is positive, allaying fears about Copilots stealing your job, which anecdotally, talking to individual contributors, you have to talk about the job thing if you're going to talk about the AI thing. People have been so primed by the news to be afraid of AI stealing your job that they won't listen to anything else until you address it. And that must come from the leadership team and preferably from the CEO. And by the way, there's not a ton of evidence that AI is actually stealing jobs in aggregate right now. That's not just me saying that. Ethan Mollick is one of the best known AI academics out there. He studied AI extensively. He tweeted as recently as like early July 2025 that there was just not much evidence that AI is actually responsible for significant job attrition. Isolated instances or expectations changing for job roles, 100%, changing job descriptions, yes, scaling up hiring for AI-specific roles, definitely seeing that. But we're not seeing large-scale attrition with AI. And I think part of why is the very reason I've had to make this video. Guys, if AI was as good as it needs to be to take our jobs, I wouldn't have to make this video because you could ask Copilot and Copilot would tell you how to roll itself out, but it doesn't. And so we need to do this culture change. Okay, I've gone through my little soapbox thing. Months 1 to 2, we've set the foundation. We've allayed the fears around jobs. Phase 2, now we're getting into scaled out deployment. Let's say you have a 6-figure employee count company. You're trying to get 10,000 users a week on, right? That's the pace you can do with the Teams channels for Q&A, with a success story sharing, with the daily Copilot tip emails. You basically have some operational support for these things that kind of caps out at 10,000 users, and you want to see how it's working. By the time you get to full adoption, you know what? Maybe you have 100,000, maybe you have 200,000, maybe like Vodafone, you have 68,000 users enabled. You'll have department competitions for best use cases. You'll have integrations with existing workflows. You're going to have continuous measurement and optimization to see if things are working. And you know what? If you take your time and roll it out like that, if you make it a serious organizational change thing, it gives you space to celebrate and talk about your success factors. So you can talk about the fact that the CEO and the CTO personally championed this, that skin in the game mattered. You can talk about how the focus of your rollout was on helping each employee to do their job better, not to just say, use AI. You can talk about and celebrate the champions in your departments. You can have weekly dashboards. You can even have bonuses tied to impact. You can have updates, success stories, tips shared in dedicated Teams channels, shared in brown bags, shared at all hands. Listen, the larger lessons learned are not too hard here. You want to have a phased rollout if you're an enterprise. You don't want to just do a big bang. You want to have champions that are individual contributors on the front lines. They translate the tech to business value, and your job as a leader is to celebrate them. You need to address fears up front. You need to be clear that this helps you and it doesn't replace you. You need to measure what works and what doesn't work and be really honest about the places where it doesn't work so you can fix it. And celebrate the wins. It really matters. By the way, none of this is new. If you have been in the culture change business and leadership, this is what we've been saying for a long time, and it's not different with AI. In fact, it's more important to do this with AI because AI feels more personal. We as a human species have never had to do shared intelligence at work. We are at the Henry Ford generation for figuring out how to work with machine intelligence at work. We need good leadership to make that successful, and like it or not, even if you love ChatGPT, and I talk about ChatGPT a lot, Copilot is where a lot of that is going to be worked out in the workplace because of Microsoft distribution advantage. Okay, let's just call out a few of the advanced features people miss as we sort of transition toward the end of this lengthy video. Thank you for staying with me. I told you it would be worth it. There's a lot of specifics. So Copilot Vision is a really interesting one. People don't use it way beyond email now. You can take a screenshot of an error message and you can say, hey, can you explain this error and how to fix it? Copilot will read your screen. It'll explain it in plain English. You can take a screenshot of a PDF table. Hey, can you convert this to Excel? Unless the table is really small with tiny print, that will often work. And you'll get properly formatted data and you can have it ready to paste. You can take a screenshot of a complicated piece of software or onboarding and say, hey, I don't know how to onboard. I don't know what option to pick. How do I export data? I will tell you, I have absolutely done this with complicated software that is poorly documented. And I get so much help from AI doing that. Like I can get buttons, you can get menu paths out of Copilot. It's really, really helpful. Okay, another one is prompt chaining. I've talked about prompt chaining elsewhere. This is how you do it with Copilot. As an example, think about 5 prompts that create a business plan. Number 1, outline the business plan for an AI consulting firm. Number 2, expand a particular section that goes deeper on market analysis. Number 3, add financial projections for the next 3 years. Number 4, create an executive summary based on the sections. And number 5, suggest 5 potential risks. Individually, these are prompts that you might think of for drafting, but when you take them together, you're basically going on a chain of thought with the AI. And I said it really fast, but you're going to write it slower. And the reason why is that you need to bring your own thinking to each piece in prompt chaining so that you're actually partnering with AI. And it almost looks like a walk through the conceptual space you're exploring together with machine intelligence. Each step in the prompt chain helps you move your own thinking forward. This is a sneak peek into how people are doing advanced drafting with AI. Let's look at another example, report generation. You can do multiple different tools here. In Excel, analyze the Q4 sales data, copy those insights to Word, then talk to Word and say, hey, Copilot, create a professional report using these insights, add an introduction. Then you move over to PowerPoint, Copilot, hey, create a 5-slide presentation from this Word report. Then go to Outlook, hey, draft an email to leadership with the report attached. Bam, 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 so fast. Again, you have to bring your brain, you have to know what you want to say, but it is possible to jump from doc to doc. And this is another example where there's no code needed and Copilot can help. And most people aren't doing that jump. Here's another one. You can build your own bots. HR onboarding bot. An HR onboarding bot built by HR without code can save HR several hours a week by just answering, what's the vacation policy? I need to add my spouse to insurance. Walk me through setting up my 401k. If you're at scale in the enterprise, you get lots of those queries every single day. Having a bot is really helpful. IT help desk bot, similar thing. You're going to get a lot of queries at the enterprise scale. Build it yourself. It can run password reset workflows. It can run software installation guides. It can run escalation to a human when needed. It might deflect half of your tickets, 60% of your tickets. It can be very helpful. All right. I don't want to leave you without a few more success stories with Copilot. DWF law firm. This is mentioned. Microsoft talked about them actually as a case study. They use Copilot to reduce the time it takes to review contracts. I haven't talked a ton about how legal is seeing tremendous changes with AI, but even though legal has a very high bar on accuracy, they cannot mess anything up, you can still use something like Copilot to get an early read and reduce the time. I think the time taken was like 7 days to 7 hours, and they got more consistent quality because they uploaded the contract, and critically, they asked the right prompts, identify obligations, identify deadlines, flag unusual terms compared to our standard, which requires Copilot to know your standard, create a summary in plain English. It's all about the kinds of prompting that you bring, and you see how they're prompting in ways that give the AI room to succeed here. Healthcare is another example. You can use Copilot for patient discharge summaries. Doctors might spend 30 minutes writing discharges. Now, Copilot can just pull from patient records, create the discharge summary, including medications and follow-up, and be done with it. It can result in a dramatic drop in the time spent doctors spend on paperwork and more time with patients. Finance. And I know this sounds like an AI advertisement, right? Like my point is not to advertise Copilot, partly because I don't need to. Everybody has it. The point is to articulate that people can do a lot more and people don't realize it. Finance is another one. You can feed market data into Excel and you can actually get a second perspective on market anomalies. Retail. You can upload a product image and you can say, write this product description. That one gets done a lot. It doesn't just get done with Copilot. Okay. If you want to do this, it is not that hard. You can get Copilot in, you can try basic prompts, you can get into your email, you can get into Word and Excel in the first couple days. And if you want to get into Copilot Vision, if you want to get into chain prompting, some of the advanced stuff I talked about, just try it. This is one of those things that I keep emphasizing with AI. Just try it. You will learn if you are willing to try. If you're with teams and you're trying to sort of not teams the software, teams the people, like people teams, let your team try it. Celebrate the wins your team is getting with Copilot. Encourage your team by showing them that you value their time saved and you will not just pile more work on. You will not just tell them you must not be that good at your job because you did it that fast. You'll actually celebrate the win. Okay, here's the reality. I'm going to go right back to the beginning. The CTO wrote me and was like, they're only using email, 6,000 person company. These companies are using 10% of a 6-figure investment in some cases, whereas the ones that are using it fully, they're getting 20x or more return on investment. The swing that I see here is insane. I talked earlier about the security edition that costs like $35,000 a month. I talked about the ROI you get if you can reduce the time of the incident because you're actually better at triaging. That by itself delivers 20x ROI. Another way to get to that 20x ROI, get these cross-team workflows I talked about going. Get marketing talking to product with Copilot. Get sales working with engineering more successfully. You're going to hit that ROI. Advanced Copilot usage like I'm describing is going to be table stakes relatively quickly. If you don't adopt it, you're going to be behind. And that's another reason I'm choosing to make this video. I could have sat on this and said, I need more information. I need more information. It's not perfect because no information set ever is. I'm making this video now because you need to adopt Copilot quickly if you have it in your business, and you need to adopt it successfully, and waiting won't help you. Start with a workflow I outline here in the video. Measure the time you saved this week. Share the video with your team. Copilot mastery is a competitive advantage in the workplace by definition because Copilot matters so much, because Copilot is in 90% of enterprises. Everything I'm describing is going to look like a basic requirement in about a year. So start now. Okay, I have a full written guide up. You know where to find it. If you want to see me make more videos on Copilot, let me know. This has been a long time coming. There was a ton to cover. I'm happy to dive deeper on specific industries. I'm happy to dive deeper on specific flavors of Copilot. Wanted to summarize it and give you the overall introduction first. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know that I've been excited to actually have meaningful AI conversations with people who use Copilot so we can move from this world where people are just using it for email to a world where people actually can take advantage of the fact that we have taught the rocks to think, and now they're at work with us in Microsoft Word and they can help us do smarter things faster. You're still bringing the brains to work, but Copilot will help. Cheers.